To remove some commissioners for the reasons that have been properly laid down. And I want to say that all Kenyans have given powers by the Constitution to petition this House on anything as long as they raise matters of fact, Honorable Speaker. And I just want to defend my very good friend, Honorable Pio and I. I've heard some members of parliament making noise to him. I just want to say that the Honorable Pio and I is justified. No, he is a member of a party that has a very clear history that today they can decide to remove him from office. So he's justified that the party did right to put him where he is. But on the second thing, Honorable Speaker, I support that petition. And
yes,
anybody...
Yes, Honorable Andai.
Mr. Speaker, it's not my nature to interrupt the debate or my colleagues on the floor. Mr. Speaker, is it in order for the Honorable Baraza to impute very improper motive, firstly on myself and secondly on my party, which has got nothing whatsoever to do with the matter before us, Mr. Speaker? Can you rule him out of order? And also to make him understand that whenever I stand here to speak, I speak on very serious issues. And I remain very objective, given my long experience in this House.
You made your point.
Thank you.
Didmus, Wandai is not part of the petition.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Let me summarize my support that we look forward to the hearings. We will be there to listen. We will write to the...
His time is up. Honorable Beatrice Elachi. He is already off the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker.
Given a floor to Elachi.
I just want to say this to this House today, that indeed, yes, these are Kenyans who have brought this petition. But more importantly, Mr. Speaker, you remember when we were in the Senate, this is an institution, as politicians, we have worked, we come, we decide how it moves, and then again we will come every 5 years after elections. We always have issues with IEBC. But one of the things that I realize, we deal with commissioners, but we don't deal with the staff. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, as we look at the petitions, can we also now realign IEBC to go back to the independence that it had? And since the three are also coming out, so it means we shall have a clean slate. I don't want to say anything about that, as I know, yes, there are those who are in court. Let us look at the matters that are in court before also we go to the petition. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
What is out of order, Honorable Kajwang?
Mr. Speaker, there's an issue which we have dealt with, we struggled dealing with in the 13th Parliament, and it continues today. And you may want to make a considered ruling on this, how members dress in these chambers. It's a very concerning issue, because you have a speaker's manual on dress. Yes. And I do not have to, you are a member of this House for a long, long time, so you have this on your fingertips. If a member is dressed in a manner, which does not depict his religious persuasion, or which does not generally, which is
go on.
Yes, yeah, Mr. Speaker, like the member who just spoke a few minutes ago, without disclosing his name for the sake of his constituents, you may have to let us know if we can come with apparels which do not suggest our religious persuasion, other than the fact that we are male.
So which of his apparel is
I want to request you, Mr. Speaker, because this has been very confusing. Yeah. Somebody comes here with a headgear, another comes here with a headband, and it has been a big problem, Mr. Speaker. Is it in order that you can, at one point in time in your own discretion, look through the Speaker's manual and give us what should be the correct dressing in this House.
Thank you, Honorable TJ. I will do that. Honorable Gitonga
Murugara. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I wish to speak on two issues. The first one is the sub judice rule, which has been alluded to. The Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs is very well averse with the sub judice.
Not a matter before the House, so you need not belabor.
Thank you very much. The second one is that, as the Speaker has rightly observed, the committee is actually a quasi-judicial institute that is going to play the roles like that of the court, which means it's going to be an impartial umpire and listen to all the parties differently so that each party is heard and given a fair chance to present and defend itself. Therefore, it did not worry the House as regards whether the House is going to prosecute or try to defend. The committee purely is quasi-judicial. It's going to hear the parties properly and then guide the House on what is to be done with these 4 petitions. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Millie Odhiambo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I just wish to indicate that I'm serving my 4th term. And I'd want to encourage this House to borrow from history. Once elections are done, the country moves on. So let us not get stuck at a point where we still want to feel like we are electioneering. Our side of a coalition went to court. The court ruled against us. We were told we were hot air, cold air, wild goose chase, tame goose chase. And we accepted and we moved on, Mr. Speaker. So I think actually this petition is in very bad taste. It's taking the country back. And I think what we need to do is let the commissioners go on with their work. The ones who are supposed to retire, let them retire honorably. Let the ones who want to continue with their work continue. Because even if you look at what the court ruled, there is nothing that untoward that was said about them, nothing illegal that they did. And so, Mr. Speaker, I just want to say, let the country realize that we are moving on. And let us stop getting stuck. Let us borrow from history and what has gone on in the past. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I see my time is up.
Kimani Ichung'wah.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And I wanted to raise first on a point of order to what the Honorable Millie Odhiambo was purporting, because I think we must appreciate that these 2 petitions are petitions by members of the public who have every right to petition the House, and consider these both petitions with the due diligence and justice, give justice unto them, Honorable Speaker. But Honorable Speaker, more profoundly is on the issue of the removal of the commissioners, Honorable Speaker, the petition by Reverend Thumbi. Honorable Speaker, I just want to beseech members, since this is a petition by a member of the public, the committee on JLAC, and Honorable Speaker, you've done well, you have guided the JLAC committee on how to conduct work in regard to that petition. We allow the committee to consider that petition, and I think it's just the first stage in such a process when you're dealing with constitutional commissions. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, I don't even want to say much on that. Honorable Speaker, on the petition by Mr. Stephen Mutoro of COFEC, Honorable Speaker, I really want to support this petition and note, Honorable Speaker, that indeed the previous regime committed close to 200 billion shillings out of the budget cycle. And this is something, Honorable Speaker, if we do not stop now, is going to portend a very bad precedent even for the current regime. And I really want to ask the Public Petitions Committee to take up this matter with gusto and address the issue of the abuse of Article 223 of the Constitution. Because many of the things, Honorable Speaker, that you find were committed to in the last days of the last regime are things that would have waited for the annual estimates this year and be considered, or even for a supplementary budget this year, Honorable Speaker. And therefore, I really want to support that petition by COFEC and encourage the public petitions to act very fast and get us to know the real details of what are these unseen things that the previous regime was so intent on spending public expenditure.
The Honorable Atandi.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me the opportunity. And Honorable Speaker, I want to comment on the petition by Stephen Mutoro on abuse of Article 223. Honorable Speaker, this article was well intended by the drafter of the new constitution. But Honorable Speaker, this article has been abused extensively by the previous regimes. Honorable Speaker, the article is intended for responsive governance. And when there are emergencies and there's need for certain expenditures to be cut, this is when this article takes effect. But Honorable Speaker, the trend has been that you see government huge infrastructural projects being commenced by way of this article. And I think this is something which we have discussed at Budget Committee, and we are asking you, Honorable Speaker, to help us so that in future, and especially in this term, we do not have situations where a huge project like Expressway being commenced by way of Article 223. It's very sad, Honorable Speaker. Thank you.
Honorable Orero, Peter.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would wish to comment on those items. One, the petition by Mutoro about the amount of money used, especially towards the electioneering period. This Article 223 had very good intention, how it is supposed to be used, but I think all the governments, I hope not the one now that we have, they have always used their leeway to use the money that is not from within the budget. I concur with my fellow colleagues that any monies that must be used, they should be always within the budget. Now, about the commissioners, the petition by Dumbi, you realize that these are the commissioners which conducted the elections that just passed. However, I beseech this House that normally we don't resurrect emotions when the country is already moving on. Despite the fact that there are members' petitions, and despite the fact that this is the preliminary stages, and we are giving the J-like committee to go and look into them, give them the opportunity to be heard. But when it comes back to this House, I would wish that we look at these commissioners as those also who are engaged, and you realize that it was a very competitive election, that now that we are in the government, I want my fellow colleagues in the other divide of the House that we look at this in a manner that will make this country run and not go back.
Honorable Johanna Ngeno.
Thank you, Speaker. I wish also to support the petitioners. Most importantly, Mr. Speaker, is on the matter of expenditure of money that may not have been appropriated by this House. Mr. Speaker, there is a tradition where most of the outgoing governments, either the national government or the county government, to use money in a very reckless way. Mr. Speaker, I think this has to come to a stop, and this petition will bring that one to a stop. And also not only expenditure of money, even employment of people at the time when the counties or the national government is coming to an end, or during the transitional period. Mr. Speaker, that one has to be stopped with immediate effect. Number two, Mr. Speaker, is on the question of removal of commissioners. Mr. Speaker, I'm in support of that. But most importantly, Mr. Speaker, I wish, as part of the contemplation in our looking into this matter, this question of recruiting the commissioners with the involvement of political parties. Mr. Speaker, we go to churches. We don't elect the bishops. We don't elect the pastors. But we keep on going to those churches for their prayers. Why are we involving ourselves on the selection of these commissioners? We need to have a commission that is non-partisan, that has nothing to do with parties, that has nothing to do with politics, that has nothing to do with contestants, so that they can be looking into this matter in a very fair way. Mr. Speaker, that is my submission.
Silvanos Osoro.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker.
Yes, the Honorable Millie, what is out of order? Give Honorable Millie the microphone. There you are.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for indulging me. And I do apologize for raising this point of order at this point because our committee is sitting for vetting, so I have to actually leave. Mr. Speaker, we've just been served with a supplementary order paper, and my concern is that I've not seen Suba North in the approval of nominees to various constituency development fund committees. So I know it's coming. That's why I'm saying I was requesting that you indulge me now because I have to leave. So that's, Mr. Speaker, when it does come, if you could kindly consider it, Mr. Speaker, because we have multiple roles, and when that role will be coming, I currently have a role with the Defense Committee, but I cannot let the role of Suba North go because I'm in Defense Committee. So I'm just seeking your indulgence that when this comes up, if we could find out why, because we've already submitted the names, and it will be unfair for some constituencies to be considered and others are not. Thank you for indulging me.
Honorable Millie, the Honorable Mbadi is here. He will adequately represent you.
I have the floor, Honorable Speaker.
Yes.
I have the floor, Honorable Speaker.
Yes, Osoro.
Honorable Speaker, I equally rise to support this petition. Honorable Speaker, this is a house of order, a house that follows rules. It is within the rights of every citizen to petition this house on any matter that arises, and it's not limited to anything that even touches on politicians. Anything that any public member to raise with this house is free to do so. And Honorable Speaker, while I support that, we need to relook at this whole thing about expenditure and abuse of Article 223 of the Constitution. Just as my colleagues have said, Honorable Speaker, come like a norm that any outgoing regime creates and finds a way to make money, drafts a system of possibly withdrawing money from the public coffers without checks and balances. If this thing is not relooked upon, because it's not only limited to the national government, it's something that is a national government, it's something that is in the county governments, it is something that is affecting the common mwananchi. And we must relook at this thing clearly. And of course, Honorable Speaker, nobody should feel or look at this whole petition from our political inclinations, because it has nothing to do with target. I mean, it's a public matter from an individual of this country. So, Honorable Speaker, we must support every petitioner and then listen to them as provided by, to give them fair hearing so that we are able to get to the bottom of this. So I rise to support. Thank you.
Kalasinga Majimbo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this time. Mr. Speaker, first, I want to comment on the petition of Stephen Mutoro, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when you look at that amount of money that was so misspent, Mr. Speaker, during the time some of us were in Senate, Mr. Speaker, we can now judge and know where that money must have been spent. We want the committee, Mr. Speaker, and the Auditor General to do a clear report to us. Show us, Mr. Speaker, where and what projects were done with that money. Mr. Speaker, so that we can now know, sometimes to give a lesson, that in any case, any government is going to hand over to another one, or when we end, Mr. Speaker, the election cycle, we must have responsibility members, I mean, somebody to run the small of his office, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when you see the second petition that is talking about IEBC commissioners, Mr. Speaker, you can now see why, Mr. Speaker, some people are rushing, wanting to announce and declare some people as candidates, Mr. Speaker, for presidential when they know how much they have spent previously, 55 billion. So, Speaker, this is why I say, and I support, that never ever in this government should we have a handshake, Mr. Speaker. These are the proceeds of the handshake, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable members, we now go to the next petition. The member Said Buya from Galole.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to read petition number 003 of 2022 regarding the gazettement of Hola Irrigation Scheme land to allow for the expansion of the county headquarters of Tana River. I, the undersigned, on behalf of the residents of Galole, Tana River County, draw the attention of the House to the following. Number one, that Hola Irrigation Scheme in Tana River County was gazetted on the 26th April 1963 and covers an area approximately 12,630 acres. Number two, that the scheme was initially used as a settlement scheme to settle thousands of Mau Mau freedom fighters and residents of Tana River in general in the 1960s. That the geographical location of Hola Irrigation Scheme at the heart of Hola Town has over the years proven to be disadvantageous to area residents in view of the fact that it continues to block the much-needed expansion of Hola Town, which is the headquarters of Tana River County. That in a bid to address this long-standing challenge, officials of the national government and the county government of and the National Irrigation Authority, members of parliament, and the National Land Commission and other stakeholders met in Hola Town on the 15th of July 2021 and mutually agreed to degazette 2,000 acres in the southern eastern parts of the scheme to facilitate expansion of Hola Town. That the meeting further proposed extension of the scheme's northern borders by a similar acreage of 2,000 acres so as to compensate for the degazettement. That the proposed degazettement and replacement of the southeastern segment of the scheme will secure the expansion of Hola Town and Tana River County in general through economic, social, and infrastructural development that is presently hindered by the scheme's current location. That efforts to have the matter by the relevant authorities have not yielded any fruit, and that the issues in respect of which this petition is made are not pending before any court of law or other constitutional or legal body. Therefore, your humble petitioners pray that the National Assembly, through the Public Petition Committee, intervenes to facilitate timely degazettement of the 2,000 acres in the southern and eastern parts of Hola Irrigation Scheme to facilitate expansion of Hola Town and to facilitate extension of the scheme's northern borders by similar acreage of 2,000 acres, and makes any other orders deemed fit in the circumstances of this petition. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The petition is committed to the Public Petitions Committee. Next order.
Order number 5, papers.
Majority Leader.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Tuesday, November 15th, 2022. 1. The 5th and the 6th batch of nominees to 58 National Government Constituency Development Fund committees from the National Government Constituency Development Fund Board for the following constituencies. Number 1, Baringo North, Bomachoge Chache, Bomet Central, Chepalungu, Embakasi Central, Embakasi South, Kabuchai, Kajiado Central, Kigumo, Kiharu, Kikuyu, Kuria West, Lamu West, Matungu, Matungulu, Mumias West, Narok West, Nyaribari Chache, Samburu North, Samburu West, Shinyalu, Sigor, Sotik, Starehe, Turkana South, Uriri, Wajia West, Bomachoge Borabu, Bomet East, Borabu, Embakasi East, Mgwen, Fafi, Jem, Ogem, Ijara, Kimilili, Kisumu East, Kitui West, Kitutu Chache, Kitutu Masaba, Lari, Luanda, Lurambi, Malindi, Madare, Madera, Mbooni, Nambale, North Mugirango, Olkalau, Saku, Samburu East, Suba North, Tetu, Thika Town, Tigania West, Ugenya, and Westlands. Number 2, Honorable Speaker, the revised list of nominees for the following constituencies from the National Government Development Fund Board One is Lamu East, Dadaab, and Kitui Central. Number 3, Honorable Speaker, the report of the Auditor General and financial statements of the Baringo Central constituency for the year ended 30th June 2021 and the certificate therein. Number 4, the report of the Auditor General and financial statements of the following constituencies for the year ended 30th June 2019 and the certificates therein. 1, Sotik. 2, Kacheliba. 3, Eldama Ravine, and 4, Ndaragwa. Number 5, Honorable Speaker, the reports of the Auditor General and the financial statements of the following constituencies for the year ended 30th June 2020 and the certificates therein. 1, Chepalungu. 2, Chesumei. 3, Teso North. 4, Sirisia. 5, Matungu, and Embakasi South. Number 6, Honorable Speaker, the report of the Auditor General and the financial statements of the Baringo Central constituency for the year ended 30th June 2021 and the certificates therein. And number 7, finally, Honorable Speaker, is the report of the Auditor General and the financial statements of the following institutions for the year ended 30th June 2021 and the certificates therein. A is Kathiani Water and Sanitation Company Limited. B, Jomo Kenyatta Foundation, Commission for University Education, Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentists Council, Kenya Medical Supplies Authority, KEMSA, Kenya Medical Laboratory Technicians and Technology Board, National AIDS Control Council, Egerton University, Machakos Technical Institute, National Transport and Safety Authority, Kenya Ordnance Factories Corporation, Revenue Accountability Statements, that is the Kenya Revenue Authority, and National Crime Research Center, and finally, the Tourism Regulatory Authority. I beg to lay the papers, Honorable Speaker.
Haven't you left out some? My list goes up to Q. Or your list is different from mine?
There was an element of review, but we possibly could proceed. Daraka Technical and Vocational College, yes. University of Embu, and Tharaka University College.
Yes.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Soro. The co-chair of IALA.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, Tuesday, November 15th, 2022. The report of the Joint Select Committee on the election of members to East African Legislative Assembly.
Thank you. Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
The Honorable Muya.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to give notice of the following motion that pursuant to the provision of Article 50 of the Treaty for the Establishment of East African Community and Rule 13.5 of East African Legislative Assembly elections of members of the Assembly rule, this House adopts the report of the Joint Select Committee on the election of members to the East African Legislative Assembly on its consideration of the names and nomination papers of the duly nominated candidates for the election as members of East African Legislative Assembly, laid on the table of the House today, Tuesday, 15th November 2022. I beg to move.
You move, or is it a notice of motion, or you're moving a motion? It's a notice, so you don't move a notice.
Sorry, it's a notice of motion.
Thank you, thank you. You just end up there. Yes, next. Under standing orders at 3-1, the Honorable Deputy Speaker, you have a notice of motion? Go ahead. Give the notice.
Honorable Speaker, I rise under Standing Order number 33, seeking leave to move the adjournment of the House for the purpose of discussing a definite matter of urgent national importance regarding to an increase in the prevalence of chemical pesticides in the country. Honorable Speaker, during the 12th Parliament, I presented a petition in this House drawing its attention to the increase in the prevalence of chemical pesticides in Kenya, which poses a risk to the health to human health, but also not only to human health, but also to the environment and biodiversity. The respective committee tabled a report of the petition. However, the resolutions of this House are yet to be implemented. There is still prevalence of chemical pesticides in Kenya, which pose a risk not only to human health, but also to our biodiversity. These products were classified as follows: 24 products that cause cancer, 24 products that are mutagenic, 35 products that cause endocrine disruption, 140 products that are neurotoxic, and they are causing brain damage in children, 262 other products that show clear effects on reproduction, toxicity, and are carcinogenic. Honorable Speaker, concerned that about 76% of the total volume of the pesticides used in Kenya have one or more active ingredients that are categorized as highly hazardous pesticides. Noting that these highly hazardous pesticides are a global human rights concern, endangering inter alia the right to food, health, as well as clean, healthy environment, and are regulated by international policy instruments to which Kenya is a state party with direct operational implications in the pesticide management. Honorable Speaker, about 44% of the total volume of pesticides used in Kenya are not allowed for use in Europe and other jurisdictions, but by some unexplainable double standards are still allowed and permitted in Kenya. In fact, these pesticides that I have pointed out have been banned in America and Europe, but their laws still allow them to manufacture them for export to countries that are ignorant enough and foolish enough to accept these products into our country. And that responsibility, Honorable Speaker, falls on the Pest Products Control Board, who have failed to undertake their due diligence and to protect the lives of Kenyans. This amounts to criminal negligence on the part of the Pest Products Control Board. In the United States of America, the Superior Court of California awarded a farmer $250 million as damages for developing cancer as a result of the repeated exposure to Roundup herbicide, which is manufactured by Monsanto. The same product is available in Kenya, approved by the Pesticide Control Board. The court found that Monsanto did not make information on the dangers of the pesticides available to the public. The same Roundup is found in aggregates across the country.
Honorable Deputy Speaker, you've made your point. You are seeking to have a motion of adjournment.
Yes.
And the points you are making will come when you move the motion.
Okay. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
You need 20 members to stand in your support. Honorable members, we have enough numbers, and I direct that 1 hour to the end of the sitting, the Deputy Speaker will be given time to move this motion, and then members will. She was giving notice. And for those who are not following, like the Honorable Mbadi, she is protesting the influx of harmful pesticides in our country, some coming from countries where they are manufactured, but their use in those countries is banned, but they are dumped in Kenya. All right, now you are clear. So 1 hour to the end of the sitting, the Honorable Deputy Speaker, you'll move that motion, and it will be debated by the House. Next.
Order number 7, questions and statements.
Questions? Yes, clerk. Yes, the Honorable Wangari.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to ask question number 001 of 2022 under private notice to the Cabinet Secretary of Foreign and Diaspora Affairs. Number 1, what is the status of investigations into the death of Ms. Miriam Hanan Njeri of passport number BK151060, a resident of Gilgil Sub-County that occurred in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia on 19th August 2022. Number 2, what steps have the government taken to facilitate the family to bringing back the remains of the 26-year-old Kenyan for a befitting send-off? Number 3, could the Cabinet Secretary state the measures the government has put in place to ensure the welfare of Kenyans working abroad, especially in Saudi Arabia? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Wangari. Yes, the Honorable Wandai.
Mr. Speaker, even as we proceed with the question and statement session, I wanted to bring to your attention that last week on Thursday, I did raise an issue here. And the issue was about the NGCDF. I've just been in quiet consultation with my colleague, the Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah, a while back. And what he's telling me is really discomforting. So I wanted you to, before we proceed to the rest of the questions and possible statements, that we dispense of this very, very critical and urgent matter of the statement by the Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah on the grave issue of NGCDF.
Thank you.
Yes.
Honorable Ichung'wah, I had given you time to bring a statement. Are you ready with it?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and I had indeed indicated to the Honorable Pio and I that you had given directions, and I was hoping you'd get to it. Honorable Speaker, I have engaged with the CS National Treasury.
I haven't given you the floor. I just asked, are you ready with the statement?
I am not ready with the statement yet.
If you are not ready, can you do so tomorrow, 2:30?
In fact, Honorable Speaker, I wanted to request for your indulgence.
Yes.
We do this either tomorrow or Thursday, if it's possible.
Thursday,
so that
we have EL elections.
And I can push the CS then to finish, because he had given a sketchy statement that I told him I was not comfortable.
I'll give you
tomorrow afternoon. Tomorrow.
Thank you. The Honorable Samuel Atandi.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I rise to ask question number 2 in today's order paper. And my question is by private notice. The question is directed to the National Cabinet Secretary for National Treasury and Economic Planning. Number 1, could the Cabinet Secretary avail the evaluation report with regard to the acquisition of Spar Bank Limited, indicating the individual or company that conducted it, if any, and state the amount that was paid at the point of being acquired by the Mwalimu National Sacco? Number 2, could the Cabinet Secretary state when approval was granted for the assets and liabilities purchase agreement between Spar Bank and Equity Bank? Number 3, could the Cabinet Secretary further explain the status of the bank's board membership and state whether it was legally constituted to conduct business, considering that the managing director and the other 3 board members had earlier resigned? Number 4, could the Cabinet Secretary clarify whether the Central Bank of Kenya carried out mitigation measures through funding of Mwalimu Sacco to meet the liquidation costs? And if yes, at what cost, and why the preference instead of funding the Spar Bank? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The next question will go to the member of Mwingi Central.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to ask question number 3 of 2022 to the Cabinet Secretary for East African Community, the ASAOS, and the Regional Development. Number 1, considering that Kitui County and particularly Mwingi Central constituency has been experiencing prolonged drought over the last 1 year, what action is the ministry taking to ensure adequate relief food supplies to the drought-stricken residents? Number 2, what measures has the ministry put in place to ensure adequate food supplies are filled under the school feeding program for both primary and secondary schools in the constituency to ensure learning goes on uninterrupted? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. To be replied before the Departmental Committee on Regional Development. The next question will go to the member for Njoro, Honorable Charity Chepkwony. I'll give it to the end of the session. The next question will go to the Honorable Rueda Obo, member for Lamu East.
Thank you, B. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to ask question 002 to the Cabinet Secretary for Road and Transport. 1, could the Cabinet Secretary outline the government policy measure being undertaken to develop marine transport in the country, and particularly in Lamu County? 2, what immediate plan has the ministry put in place to provide modern marine transport facilities, such as ferries, among others, to Lamu residents and tourists? 3, what policy measures are in place to facilitate private enterprises to develop marine transport facilities in the country and in Lamu County in particular? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Member. That question will be replied before the Departmental Committee on Transport and Infrastructure. The next question will go to the member for Kabuchai, Honorable Majimbo Kalasinga. If he's not in the House, the next question will go to the member for Yatta, Honorable Robert Basil.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I raise to ask question 004 of 2022 to the Cabinet Secretary for Lands. Question number 1, could the Cabinet Secretary state the number of persons classified as landless and commonly referred to as squatters in Yatta constituency? Question number 2, what measures has the ministry put in place to ensure that all squatters across the country, and in particular in Yatta constituency, are resettled, and state by when this will be done, including when they shall be issued with title deeds? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. That will be replied before the Departmental Committee on Lands. The next question will go to the member for Machakos County, Honorable Joyce Kamene. If the member is not in the House, the next question will go to the member for Kangema, Honorable Peter Kehongi.
Okay, thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to ask a question number 006, 2022, to the cabinet for agriculture and livestock. Could the cabinet secretary outline the various taxes charged in the tea subsector, and in particular those directly affect tea farmers? What policy measures has the ministry put in place to reduce the various taxes imposed on farmers and other stakeholders in the tea subsector? Number 3, could the cabinet secretary explain the steps that the ministry will take towards ensuring the reduction